Welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs. I'm Jonathan Freedman, and our next guest is Dr. Frederick Joseph, founder and CEO of Surgeons Lab AG. Welcome to Radio Entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's my pleasure.
It's a pleasure having you on. I must say, you're probably the first guest that we've had visiting us from Switzerland. So welcome to the US-based version of, or I guess the international version of Radio Entrepreneurs, but nice to have a guest in Europe. So
thank you so much. Yeah.
Tell our listeners about your company and what it is that you do.
Surgeons Lab is in the brain medical simulation business. So we are a medtech company based out of here in Switzerland. It's a spin-off from the University Hospital and the University of Bern, which is the capital of Switzerland. It originated basically with an unmet clinical need for finding a better solution to train neurosurgeons for complex brain surgeries. So it was an unmet need where it actually came up, developing a product which is in the market right now.
So, historically, I guess training has been on cadavers, and obviously there must be, not having gone through the medical profession, but having a late father and grandfather who were both surgeons, and a budding, hopefully, doctor one day, and my daughter, I understand that, you can only dissect a cadaver so many times, right? I mean, if you're, in particular, I would imagine if you're dealing with the brain. So does your product allow things to have greater longevity or to use things for longer periods of time? Is that one of the needs that it creates or solves in the market?
Exactly. First, the cadavers cannot be used for brain surgery training, because these pathologies what you see in the brain cannot be found on cadavers, and more extensively, cadavers cannot be reused. Our models can be reused, and it is not a virtual reality simulation. It is I would say it is a mix of all. It's a physical reality simulation. We replicate the physiological properties of patient-specific anatomy, including the disease in a brain, be it a tumor or an intracranial aneurysm, which leads to later a stroke. So today, the resident who is trying to become a neurosurgeon just goes on the first day of their residency, just stand next to the surgeon, wondering what to do. And this is how they complete years of residency for up to 7 years, goes until the day they touch a patient, So we are bringing in here an experience that a resident can have it like a small mission in front of them in the hospital, getting exposed to realistic exercises such that the process of getting an hands-on skill gets much more easier.
Now, are you a neurosurgeon? What is your background that brought you to the need, or?
My PhD is focused on neurosurgery. My focus, so I'm technically background. I have a technical background, and my focus on the PhD was on neurosurgery. My co-founder is a full board-certified neurosurgeon. So we both started working together, and that's where the solution came in.
So what is the material? Is it a molded product? Is that the way it is? And so I would imagine it's three-dimensional, correct? And
it's a four-dimensional, I would say, because the process starts with an CT MRI scan of a patient, where we use this data to replicate a three-dimensional replica, I would say, which is not only just a solid object. It has also all the perfusion in it. They have a blood flow in it, which is something I would say that's a unique selling point of Surgeons Lab. It is you will wonder when you're seeing the simulator that whether it is a 3D object or a 4D object. We say there is also life and time involved when you're doing a procedure. Very basically, if you do some of these procedures wrong, the system will also alert you that the training or the steps that you make in the approach is completely needs a correction, I would say.
And in the real life, fatal potentially.
Exactly.
So it sounds a lot like, and I don't mean to draw a parallel, but for our listeners, perhaps like a flight simulator, where the alarms go off when you're making mistakes, and it's a great training tool. Now, where do you envision, or how much time would you envision a resident to be utilizing the model. The simulation versus perhaps the old model, standing next to a neurosurgeon and observing. What is the amount of time in one milieu versus the other?
See, today a neurosurgeon who is trying to become a neurosurgeon, rarely he finds a workshop for a couple of days. He travels around for congresses where he try to learn some of the basic techniques in neurosurgery. Here he spends maybe a couple of days, or maybe he goes for 3 or 4 different conferences in a year. But with our system, I would say he or she can use as many as times they want. Each of the model that we have is can be reused for nearly 20 times. So until you make the patient die, if you do something really fatal, you cannot use them anymore. You have to exchange the cartridges. We call this them as neuropod. For example, the portion of the deceased head is called as a pod, and you bring them into the neurodoc and you try to train whatever procedure you want. Yeah.
And is this is your model, is your vision that the model would be every resident in neurosurgery would have one? Or is it every hospital would have one? Every medical school would have one? What's the vision for how the product would be rolled out?
See, we
ideally one on every desk, right?
I would not say that is something even possible. I have to be very realistic. The goal or the vision I see here is every medical school should have a one. Not at least one. It depends on at least one per account of 10 or 5 residents. If there is like 50 residents at medical school, at least should have 5 of our simulators. And on a long run, we are also planning to use this simulator for a patient-specific training. Even experienced neurosurgeon today face difficulty in planning and training these patient-specific cases, because in a neurosurgical procedure, usually 30-40% of the time is spent just only on investigation, opening your brain and trying to see whether the implant fit well or not. So we are trying to solve this by just having a pre-operative training even for the neurosurgeons, experienced neurosurgeons. So the long vision, I would say, to also have it in every neurosurgical centers, such that patient-specific training can also take place. We ultimately save patient life and patient safety is achieved.
And to your point, I know that the less time somebody spends on the operating table, the better in general. So I would imagine, your model is hopefully going to cut down on the exploratory aspect of what's going on within neurosurgery.
Exactly.
Very, very fascinating. Tell us what stage you're at. I know as you said, you're a Swiss-based company. You've got some exciting news coming up in the summer for your company. Are you're in clinical trials, through clinical trials? Does your product require clinical trials? Tell us about that.
We have recently finished a study on resident training. So the study very clearly, it's also published, it very clearly says that there is a learning curve if a resident is trying to get trained on the simulator. So this is already finished and we are on market. We are already selling it to some of the hospitals. We have some customers here in Switzerland, and we got some good tractions in the US, and we are also doing a product launch this summer in the US, I would say. So we are going on a roadshow. We are partnering together with B. Brown on a truck, taking our simulator more than 40 different hospitals across the US from starting this July 2021. And
so it must be interesting when you guys check in at the airport and they say, do you have anything in your bag? And we said, just a brain, just a model of a.
Probably, yes. Yeah.
Exactly. And is it a highly, just thinking about the product itself, is it highly portable? Is it?
It's very compact. Yeah.
So it mimics a human brain in size, and
it's very handy, I would say.
It can't carry it in your hands. Excellent.
Yeah.
What is this your first foray into being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, yes, I'm a second generation entrepreneur. My family has an entrepreneurial background, but this is my first company, I would say.
So I guess one of the questions that we like to ask on Radio Entrepreneurs, because we're all about, entrepreneurs learning from entrepreneurs and creating a knowledge base. What are some of the lessons that you would impart? Some of the things that surprised you on this journey, and I suspect it's been a long one. But tell us some of the things that lessons learned, if you will.
I would say, especially being a medtech entrepreneur, the time you take for the whole process is not very easy. You don't get results that fast. You don't have to find something, invent, go get feedback from a surgeon or a doctor, and in order to put that on a market, you need a very long approval process. Then you have to go for steady trials. You may come across a lot of unexpected outcomes which you might not expect. So there will be a lot of failures. Getting a product to the market, or with collecting out, bringing all the resources together. It's just all about passion. Being an entrepreneur, and that too being a medtech entrepreneur, you have a very good feeling that your invention is going into the market and going to start serving a community at last. Viably. I have this in me. For example, I'll be the most happiest person if one of my inventions is getting a patient cured or diagnosed. So this is something which keeps you running, and never give up. That's something I would say. You will have. For me, I have like thousands of problems every day, maybe like tens of good news. So only tens,
you got to be an optimist.
Exactly. So there should be an inner energy in you that should push you every day, every minute, I would say that. So you will have probably like once in 2 hours a good news, but every new minute you will have a bad news. So that should be an energy, the inner energy, that you should be optimistic to keep your things running.
So great insight and great wisdom being shared. Optimism, positive energy, and making sure that you're in it for the long haul, because there's going to be a lot of obstacles in your way. So.
Yeah, always see if there is, I will always see from the end, where I am. I start to imagine, dream where I'm going to be if my product is going to serve a patient, and I start from there. So that actually puts energy up, I would say.
Excellent. Our guest has been Dr. Frederick Joseph, founder and CEO of Surgeons Lab. Dr. Joseph, people want to get in touch with you. What's the best way for them to reach you?
I'm always accessible 24/7 via LinkedIn. So please search me on LinkedIn and reach me out. I'm happy to stay in contact for any collaborations.
Excellent. Our guest has been Dr. Frederick Joseph of Surgeons Lab. It's been a pleasure having you on Radio Entrepreneurs, and we wish you all the best with your upcoming roadshow in the US.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And we'll be right back with another guest on Radio Entrepreneurs.